Hello and welcome to Vox Markets. I am John Hewman and I am very pleased to be joined again by Stuart Jubb, who is currently the Managing Director of Crossword Cybersecurity. How are you doing, Stuart?
I'm good, thanks, John. Good to see you again.
Excellent. And I say currently because there's been some management changes announced at Crossword this week in what can only be described as a very orderly transition, exactly the type the market wants to see. And many congratulations because you're going to become the chief exec. So sort of tell us about that and sort of the rationale behind it and what's going on at the board level at Crossword.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and yeah, thanks, John. I mean, it's it's always nice to get promoted as we all know. So yeah, so the transition's something that we've been working on for a couple of years now. So as Tom said, he saw me as a successor fairly early on in Crossword's journey. We've been working towards that. So over the past couple of years, he's been handing over responsibility to me. So sales and managed services in 2021, and then product last year. So that's good. Tom always thought he'd step up to be chair. So it's good to have Sir Richard still on the board because he's a great board member. And just the prestige of having someone with him on the board is good. And Tom and I have almost been working in a sort of chair CEO type fashion for the past 6 months anyway. So it's not a huge surprise for some of our investors nor internally.
No, so sort of all change and no change, and you know the sort of overarching strategy remains exactly the same. Perhaps remind us what that strategy is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're looking at a number of different things. So we're basing our strategy around innovation. So we know that in order to stay current in cybersecurity, we need to innovate. So we ran a series of workshops last year on how you look at cybersecurity within artificial intelligence, obviously a hot topic at the moment. So how are some of these AI companies, LLM, generative AI, how are they going to protect the data that they're taking from customers? And hackers will be looking at those companies and thinking that they're very attractive targets. So we've worked with a number of companies to start to explore that. And we see AI as a feature of our products and services and helping companies secure that data. We announced the partnerships with TD Synnex and with the partnerships in the Caribbean. So we see those going quite well. We're doing a lot of business in the Caribbean. I was out there last week, in fact, helping our partners out there close some work. So not a bad business trip if you can get it. So we see partnerships is quite important. We're looking at other geographies and we're looking to bring new partners into our ecosystem. We're at the stage now as a company where we've been working with SMEs, high growth technology companies, and we're moving up that value chain into bigger companies. So FTSE 250, FTSE 100. And we see our business being based around up to 10 key accounts where we're hoping to be doing £1 million a year within the next 3 to 5 years. So having a big chunk of our revenue coming from 10 key clients. The tricky thing about those clients is the projects are bigger and the deals are bigger, but they can take longer to close. And also because we're a smaller company, we just have to be careful that we're not aiming too big because a sort of £3-4 million contract will be a big chunk of our business and they may not want to go with that. So we're moving up that value chain. And then the last thing is that as I said, we'll continue to innovate our products and services, but we've successfully onboarded 2 companies over the last 3 years. So we acquired Stager in 2021 and Threat Status in 2022. So for those people who don't know Crossword, Stager is a monitoring platform. So you plug it into a company's infrastructure, it looks for unusual behavior and patterns. And Threat Status is a threat intelligence tool. So it looks for data, stolen login and passwords on the dark web. And those companies are growing quite nicely. So we're also always on the lookout for potential other acquisitions. So can we add some additional revenue and margin onto the top line by making some acquisitions? Yeah. And then just the last thing, John, sorry to interrupt, is just maintaining our culture. So it's tough finding good people, and we want to sort of hold on to good people. We want to attract good people. So we're very much trying to sort of preserve as good a culture as we can. A lot of companies talk about it, but I think, having talked to a couple of people who've joined recently, they said they joined us because of the culture. So that'll be a key part of my role going forward.
Yeah, I think that's very important. It's as you say, sort of much sort of spoken about, but often not delivered. And I must admit to stalking Crossword Cybersecurity on LinkedIn, and you can see that culture in action. Lots of your team are out there sort of talking about the work that they do. It's really interesting.
Yeah, no, thanks. I mean, yeah, I'm surprised we're a cybersecurity company. I'm surprised we didn't spot that. But yes, so we've got an eclectic bunch. I mean, cybersecurity attracts eclectic people, and we've got an eclectic bunch who have a lot of wide interests outside Crossword, which anything from flying gliders. I used to do jiu-jitsu. We've got people who like to write. We've got people who are in bands, who play, quite successful bands, who are playing at gigs and things like that. And we really encourage people to bring that all to work. And I'm not saying we get everything right. We're trying to grow the company and we get things wrong, but I think we try, and I think we genuinely do get most things right. And the one thing we do try to do is be quite open with people. So clearly we can't tell everyone every decision we're making, and we're a listed company, but we do try and explain from an exec level why we are doing certain things and why we are making certain decisions.
Yeah. No, what comes across, it seems like a happy team, and I think that's extremely important. So we've got the strategy in place, and obviously you're going to be sort of picking up the reins in the hot seat as part of a team that offers some continuity from where the business has been before. Perhaps tell us about the business and how it looks. So I know there's obviously a big managed services and consulting division, but then you've got increasing amounts of software in the mix as well. And I guess that's important from a sort of margin perspective. Perhaps tell us about the structure and where you plan to take it.
Yeah, absolutely. So consulting has typically been the biggest part of the business. So it would have been around about 50% of last year's revenue, and that's a mixture of projects, but also a big chunk of that is recurring revenue as well, and managed services around the products. So what we'd like to do in time is change that mix so that product starts to sort of become 60, 70, etc. %. We'll always maintain a consulting business because we get approached. It's a good way of bringing our products into clients, and it means we're able to have really good cyber experts who can help on the product development within the company. We've got 3 main products that are out there in the market at the moment. So we've got Risicon, our supply chain risk management tool. That each of those products are roughly making up the remainder of that 50%, although it'd be slightly bigger than 50% this year. So Risicon, we typically work with big companies, so big blue chip global organizations, quite a long sales cycle, managed services with product, so a bit of a mix there. We've then got Nightingale and Trillion, which is pure product revenue. There are some managed services, but they're quite small, and they're both growing fairly significantly this year, and we've grown them significantly. We're having a lot of success in the Caribbean with Nightingale, in fact. So I think going forward, that product mix will change, and clearly the margins will improve, because as those products break even, the revenue goes straight to the bottom line.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A tried and tested model for software companies, and one that makes a lot of sense. So perhaps tell us what each of those products does in terms of sort of the risks that are out there that companies are trying to protect themselves from. So I guess we can sort of start by talking about the risks, the trends in cybersecurity that you're battling, and how your products sort of fit into fighting them.
Yeah, so if we look at Risicon, that's solely focused on supply chain risk. So if you're a big multinational company, you might have 10,000 suppliers. How do you manage the cybersecurity risk across 10,000 suppliers? It's quite difficult. And what companies will typically do is, is triage those risks, and they'll look at maybe the top 100 high risk suppliers. So they'll look at that from a supplier who has access to data and the crown jewels. So if a supplier was attacked, could they get into the parent company's crown jewels, data, etc.? But they'll also look at how well protected those companies are. So if you're someone who washes the garage doors, you're probably not that concerned from a cyber perspective. But if you're a company that inserts code into a company's own software, then clearly that's probably a company that you'd want to have a look at. And what Risiken does, it takes a lot of different data feeds from companies' own information on the suppliers to open source information and other third-party tools. It puts it into the analytics engine and comes up with how the top 100 or however many suppliers you want, and then we can operate managed services around that. So we can manage the whole supply chain risk program, if you like. So that's Risiken, and supply chain risk is in the top 3 risks that companies and boards are looking at from a supply chain, from a cyber point of view.
Yeah.
Trillion is a bit different in that Trillion looks at stolen logins and passwords on the dark web. So there's data breaches almost on a weekly basis. Most big companies have, particularly those that hold a lot of third-party data, will have been breached at some stage. This gets sold on the dark web, on forums, etc. And our team of analysts are able to scrape that information and let companies know that if there are stolen logins and passwords about them on the dark web. And what that does is that provides early warning that a company might be getting looked at or vulnerable to an attack, and they can clearly get people to go and change logins and passwords, etc. We've released a new feature, Harvester, which looks at a more intelligence gathering point of view. So if you're a company that the volume of chatter on the dark web is going up, then maybe some hackers are collaborating or talking about an attack. So that feature got released earlier this year. So that's threat intelligence, that's Trillion. And then we've got Nightingale, which you plug into a company's infrastructure that monitors what's going on in data centers on a company's network. It looks for unusual patterns. So is someone logging in from an unusual country at 4 a.m.? The attacks typically will happen outside working hours, which you'd expect. And it will alert then security teams, IT teams, or whoever's responsible for cybersecurity that there is the potential for an attack. What that team also does is, if a company has been breached and they want someone to go in and do some forensics and work out what's happened, they can go in and do that. And then that often then will lead to a 12 or sometimes 36-month software deal. So very different areas of cybersecurity that the products look at. But what we typically find is that we will go into a company to do one thing, and because they like us, they often will then speak to us about something else, and we're able to cross-sell products and services into the same clients.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, and I mean it sort of highlights the scale of the problem. This is probably one of the biggest risks most corporates have to contend with these days. And actually, one thing you sort of alluded to there is that balance between prevention and reaction. So preventing cyber attacks, cyber incidents in the first place, and reacting to them. Well, how does sort of the business? What's the balance of business that you do? Across prevention and reaction.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's the question that companies are normally asking themselves. So how because you can spend a lot more money and reduce the risks as much as you like, but then how much does that hamper the business? So the question is, how risky are you as a business? So if you're a bank, you're probably quite risky, so you'll invest a lot of money in cybersecurity. If you're a high growth startup, if you spend a lot of money on cyber, but you burn through your cash and don't get a product out in time, your investors aren't going to thank you for having great cybersecurity but not getting the product out. So it's understanding what risk level you are as a company, and then deciding on how much you want to invest. Companies will never be able to completely prevent an attack. So companies are getting successfully attacked all the time. Then it's about how do you then protect the key data? How do you protect your payment processes? So hackers want to steal money, they want to steal data. So how do you protect the sort of crown jewels of a company, accepting that you will get attacked? But also, if an attack is more successful than you would like, how do you then react? Because you can get attacked and you can react and minimize the damage. And then it's about rehearsing, particularly as an exec, particularly as a cyber team, rehearsing that you have been attacked, because when people are under stress, they find it difficult to make, sort of logical decisions. So having your playbooks, having rehearsed it, having been put under a bit of pressure really helps. I used to be in the military, and clearly you do a lot of that in the military. So so understanding the risks, understanding that you will get attacked, and then rehearsing that you have been attacked is probably the best way to look at it.
Yeah, makes sense. And I guess that's where there's always going to be this layer of consultancy that overlays the products, because actually it's teaching people how they need to behave as organizations to manage this risk.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes companies won't know what they need. There's a lot of cyber companies out there. There's a lot of shiny software out there. And if you're someone who doesn't know much about cybersecurity, you won't know where to start. So often a consultant will go in, do a very quick diagnostic piece of work of where a company is, where we recommend they should be, and then say, okay, so here's your cyber budget. This is what we recommend we spend it on. So some of that will be third-party software. You're not going cybersecurity problem with just one piece of software. Some of it might be, well, you need some monitoring. You need someone to implement a load of policies that we can do. Maybe look at supply chain risk next year, et cetera. So consulting really helps with the clients understand where they are and then what they need to do to improve.
Yeah, and I was looking again. I was looking at your website, so it's not just stalking you on LinkedIn. It's stalking you across your own website. It's a mine of information there. One of the things I noticed was that actually the cybersecurity function in organisations is now a dedicated function, not just something that's in the CTO's role, but cybersecurity officers in their own right are becoming the key decision maker here.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Chief Information Security Officer, the role has been around for a while now, and they will, depending on the size of the organization, they'll often report into the CFO, the COO, sometimes the CIO. But with big companies, there will be a standing agenda item on cybersecurity where they'll have a dashboard or a series of slides, KPIs on how the company's doing, both from a metrics point of view, so sort of volume of attacks, et cetera, but also how is the cyber improvement program looking? Are they working through the different projects to improve the posture? And they'll have a risk dashboard on what are the critical risks and how they're getting addressed. So the CISOs are extremely visible to the board. So yeah, and I can see that only sort of improving and continuing over the next few years. What I will just add, some companies don't want to invest in a chief information security officer, and that's fine, because if you have a CISO, often then you'll need to build a team around them, and companies can't afford it, so they can outsource their services. Clearly would like to outsource their services to us, but yeah, they can outsource them to external providers as well.
Yeah, but you're in a good place to pick up the business, whichever route they choose to take. Yeah. Given your balance of software and consulting.
Yeah, we've got different touch points. So we've got sort of 3-4, arguably with different consulting services, 5 or 6 different touch points that companies can buy from us. We'll look at some acquisitions potentially next year, and that might just increase our portfolio and the opportunity to cross-sell. So the sales team, it's good for them, because when they're doing the cold calling and setting up meetings, there's lots of different things they can talk about. So if a client already has some monitoring, for example, we can speak to them about threat intelligence or consulting services. So that's good from that perspective.
Yeah, that's incredible. No, absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much, Stuart, for talking us through the business in a bit more detail. It's sadly a a reality of the modern connected world. But you know, fantastic to see the great work you're doing to overcome that. And congratulations once again on your promotion.
Thanks, John, and good to see you.
You too. Thanks a lot.